RC Jim, and this is a second in the series of videos that we're doing on how to program your ESC. The first one is we looked at the introduction to ESC programming. We had a look at these little ESCs and what they do and the sort of things that you might want to change. And I discussed that in quite a bit of detail. Now today what I want to do is to give you the very basics of how to do it. And then following this, we'll be doing a variety of videos on specific ESCs and how to program them. And with them, it's not as much how to do it, because with what you see today, you'll basically get the idea of how you do it. But it's a matter of understanding what's going on with each one, because they've got so many different parameters to select from, and you might just wonder, what on earth is this one? It doesn't sound like the standard sort of thing. So we'll be going through those for each of the ESCs that we can get our hands on, and we'll be showing you those things. So first off, with regard to the ESC, the sort of basic way that is the easiest to program them is to use a little programming card. So as you look at this little guy right here, this is a programming card for a dual sky ESC. And what it does is it's got a little button down here on the bottom. If I can get my finger in the right place, right there. There's that little button. And when you've got this thing powered up, and you'll just simply plug in your ESC over here, and if you've got a battery elimination circuit, then that's going to power it up. If it didn't have a battery elimination circuit, then you'd be putting the power onto that next spot over there. But anyway, most of the time you'll have the BAC, so you just plug it in here. You note that it's got a negative on the inside sort of part of that, and so you need to have the negative end over there, so that would be the dark cable that goes on that particular side. And then opposite over here you got this little red button, and with it powered up there'll be lights that display along the sides. And you press that once and it'll move it down to the next item. And you keep doing that and it'll keep moving it down through the various lists. When you get to the one that you want, you hit it twice, and that then enters into that item, and then you can press it again to select those items along the way. So we'll be showing you the details of that one later, but that's one type. Another type of program card is this Cobra one. And with this one, you've got little jumper things that you plug in on the outside. So these unplug, and you can plug them into whichever thing that you're after. When you look at the middle of that, it'll tell you what it is that you have selected as far as the parameter is concerned. So very simple. Again, you've got a place to connect the ESC. So this one over here with the orange bit on it, where it talks about the signal on the top, that's for plugging in the lead. And when I talk about the lead from the ESC, we're talking about the throttle cable. What would normally go to your throttle on the receiver, you plug that into here. And then with this, you just simply put the various jumpers into the places where you want it, and it'll give a confirmation saying that it's got it, and then that is done. So very simple as far as that is concerned. Then as you get into some of the Spectrum ones, then you've got, well, the Avian series, you've got these little guys here. With this, you plug in the ESC in this middle port on the side here. If it didn't have power, you'd plug the battery into the bottom one. And this top one is to plug in your computer. So they give you a cable like this, and you could plug it into your computer. The computer is just simply going to do the same things that this can do, so generally you're not going to bother doing that to program things. But the main thing you might want to hook it onto the computer for is to update the firmware, the sort of software that controls the ESC. And I don't think that tends to change an awful lot, but if it does, that will alter it. So anyway, with this, you just press the select to select the item that you want. You press the edit button to go into that, and you keep pressing that to get it to what you want, and then you press the save to save it. So pretty simple as far as that goes. Now, what we want to get into next is what you do if you're going to program it with your transmitter. Now, thinking of the spectrums, if you've got the avian and you've got a spectrum transmitter, if you've got your firmware upgraded on the transmitter and the firmware is updated on the ESC, then just simply as you get in there, when you, and this won't show it because I don't have it hooked up to one, but when you get in there to into your model, you know, you've got the wheel over here that you dial, and if this had the telemetry and it was hooked up, as I dial it to the right, I would get the various telemetry functions. Well, the ESC programming is basically the last thing on the list. So as you roll the scroll wheel over to the right, the last thing you come to is going to be the software for that, or the thing where you can change that. You hold down the stick to the bottom left-hand corner until it says you're ready for the next one. Then you hold it down to the bottom right-hand corner, and this is your aileron elevator stick. So down to the right-hand corner until it says that it's ready, and then you can just use the stick to go down through the items, selecting them down, and go to the right or to the left to pick specific items in that particular list. So that's quite easy, but you do need to have that AVN or ESC. And I might mention, if you've got a plug-and-play plane, like say my P51 1.2 meter, the ESC that comes with that, of course I've got the previous version, I don't have the current one, but at least on mine, the ESC that comes with it is not programmable at all. Can't do a thing with it. It's plug and play, and so they've got it all set in the factory, and that's just how it is. Nothing that you can do. Okay, so let's say that with this this is not a P51, with this Corsair, with the Predator ESC, let's say we're going to program this with a stick. Okay, as we think about programming with the stick, the first thing that we want to do is to program the throttle, and that's something that you'll typically do with pretty well every plane that you get. So we've got the transmitter on. It's on the particular model that we're looking at. It's the Corsair. This has been bound to the plane before. Doesn't hurt to make sure that everything is good that way, so everything in the safe positions. Throttle down, we'll go ahead and hook it up. It goes through its startup routine. Okay, so that's all set, and we verify we've got control movements and so forth, so it's definitely bound to the plane. Okay, so now we unplug the plane. Okay, we've got our throttle stick and the down position right now. I got my safety switch to the throttle cutoff, so I now arm that to where the throttle is going to work. I put the throttle up to 100%. I verify that it's at 100%. By the way, you notice the stick is 100 at the top. It'd be 0 in the middle, and it'd be minus 100 at the bottom. Okay, so we've got this disarmed. We've got our throttle at 100%. Be looking at it to make sure it stays there. Okay, plane is secured in place. Everything is safe. I got that at 100%. Now we turn it on. Okay. That sounded to me like the normal routine. Okay, I'm concerned that this hasn't been properly calibrated, in that it's supposed to hear a couple of beeps. You put the stick down, then I should be getting, let's see, what does the instructions say? Several beep tones should be emitted to present the, to tell us how many cells it is detected. And then there should be a long beep that confirms that the lowest point has been set on the throttle. Okay, so what I'm concerned is I'm hearing the sounds that it goes through with a reflex when it's setting the gyro thing up and all that kind of stuff. So what I'm doing is I've disconnected the throttle that comes from the ESC from the reflex unit, and I'm going to plug it directly into the receiver. So I like to Velcro on my receivers so that I can get them out to do stuff like this. Okay, so the throttle is in the number 1 servo position, which is the second thing in there because the battery is the first one. Dark thing is always on the bottom, the negative is on the bottom, and so we get that slotted in there. Okay, so now I'll be powering up the receiver. Reflex system is bypassed. Hopefully, I'm not sure if it could get any power from those other things. I don't know if that's going to work or not, but we're going to try it. Okay, we're still all secure. So we put our throttle at 100%, trying to get it where it's going to stay put. It's reading at 100. So I then confirm if it's at 100. I plug in our power. There's the 2 beeps. There's the 4 beeps. And there's the long tone. Okay, and then it went through the other stuff. So for some reason, by having the power going directly to the reflex unit and not going directly to the receiver, it didn't work, and changing that around it did. So mark that down in your book for a little tidbit of information that might be really helpful one day. The programming the throttle is going to be very similar. Pretty well with most ESCs that are programmable. So you do that bit with having the model has already been bound to the transmitter before. You put the transmitter up into the 100% throttle position. You plug in the model and power it up, and then you hear a few beeps. You take it down, and then you hear some other beeps that confirm that it's done. So that's basically how all of those are going to work. Now, if you're going to program the other functions with this stick, you do it in a similar way, and there'll be some slight variations from one to another. Pretty well all of them will start out the same. You'll start out with a stick at 100%. You'll plug in the plane. And then you'll get those initial beeps where normally you'd be pulling this down. But instead of doing that, you'll leave it up there. And it'll be a period of time. It might be 15 seconds or so, something like that. And then it'll give you another tone to confirm that you're into the programming mode. It then will start going through a set of tones to indicate which item that you're going to be programming. And that's where there'll be a significant difference. For some of them, it's just simply numerical. The first item will be 1 beep. The second item will be 2 beeps. Third item will be 3 beeps. Other ones, like say this Predator, it starts out that way, but after it gets to 4 beeps, then it goes to long beep, and then it starts going, adding short beeps after the long beep to go to the advanced ones up there. With some of them, after you set one item, when you're setting it, you're typically moving the stick up and down. You've got the stick all the way up there. It starts making these beeps indicate which item that you're able to change. And when you get to the item that you want to change, you put the stick down. When you put the stick down, it'll then start going through a series of beeps that indicate what the option is that you're looking at. And so, say it might be fast start, slow start. So it might be 1 beep for fast start, 2 beeps for slow start. And when it does the one that you want, you put the stick back up at the other end, and it's selected that one. With that particular thing, when you then put it down, you're all done. And again, there can be some slight variations to it, but oftentimes you can only select one item at a time. With this Predator one, it actually allows you to do multiple ones at a time, but then the last item on the list is a save and exit thing. Okay, so you go to that and you select that. So with those, there's going to be some differences for each of them, so we're going to be going through specific ones in our next videos. We'll also be talking about the particular choice that you have to make. With this Predator, we only have 6 choices, and it's pretty simple. But we've got some others that will have 15, 16, 18 different choices, and sometimes the item that they describe sounds like something different. So you really need to understand what it is that you're actually changing and have an idea of what to change. Other ones like this one here on the timing, they got low, medium, and high, and they say, oh, usually just leave it on low. But low is only 3.75 degrees, and for a great big outrunner, yeah, that's a little bit low. So anyway, we'll be talking about some things like that as well. So next video, we'll get into those things straight away. Okay, well that pretty well does it with regard to the basics on the how-tos. Again, we're going to have some videos following on this with the specific ones, and I think those things will be helpful to you. In the meantime, make sure that you subscribe. Click on the little round thing there, and make sure all the stuff is handy as it comes along. And then, of course, have a look at some of the other videos on the channel, and I think you'll find some things of interest and a real help to you in our hobby.